Now, as I told you, Angelo Giuliano is one of the very best Western commentators on and in China. I follow Angelo in China all the time. I love to see his material. But very bravely, he decided to go to Venezuela I think maybe 3 weeks ago, he'll tell us. And he's been reporting daily from the streets of Caracas. And now he joins us. Direct from Venezuela, Angelo Giuliano. Angelo, I hope and pray that you are safe where you are. You'll have heard the news, like I did, from Tucker Carlson, no less, who says that he was briefed yesterday that war is to be declared by Donald Trump this evening. Your first reaction, please.
Well, it is quite shocking, especially here when you go around Caracas in the streets. It is business as usual. It's a peaceful place. And you need to keep in mind that it's a Catholic country. Here, people are extremely traditional when it comes to the holidays, Christmas holidays. And it's pretty much the whole month. People celebrate Christmas. So now the discussion of war has not been the topic here. Mostly people are concerned about daily life, just how you put food on the table, inflation. But overall, it's a peaceful place. So you don't have a feeling of threat of war. Now, in terms of where are the tense places, I would say is when you pass the immigration, of course, I think it's more difficult. And they need to question all the foreigners that are coming in because they are, potentially foreign agents. And I would say another place which is extremely sensitive is around the Palacio Miraflores. Now, when it comes to my relationship with Venezuela, I was in the early days of Chavismo. In 1999, I spent a year back then in Venezuela. And I've been coming back regularly because it's a very special place for me. And it was very interesting for me to be close to the Chavismo experiment, which is quite unique. There are lots of big achievements. And I think for Trump and for the US, it is a big risk to have a socialist experiment to be successful. So they did everything in the last 20 years just to make sure that these miracles wouldn't happen, because it was a miracle. If you look at especially the old generation here in Venezuela, they do know how was Venezuela before Chavismo and what Chavismo brought to Venezuela. Now, it's not about ideology, George. For me, my perspective is I come from the aspect of sovereignty. For sovereignty, we need to go back all the time to this element, which is sovereignty, because it's about self-determination. Whenever the West is talking about democracy has no meaning whatsoever if you don't have the foundation of sovereignty. Decisions shouldn't be made in Brussels, shouldn't be made in Washington, and it's about decency. People need to have a decent life. They do not want to be slaves, and they don't want this new form of colonialism. Now, what can I say? This aggression. I think the U.S. empire is desperate, and I would say Trump has two problems. I would say internally he lacks backing, support. There's only 30% of Americans that are supporting war against Venezuela, and I would say legally, if he was to fail, there would be a major problem legally, and it's a precedent. I think now the U.S. is turning, because of Trump, it's turning into a complete rogue state, especially with the support he did with Gaza. Now attacking Venezuela, we absolutely no legal ground, absolutely no support. That would create a new precedent. Then anything is possible. And I would say we need to look at the broader picture when it comes to Latin America. If Venezuela falls, there's going to be a domino effect. Actually, Cuba could fall even before Venezuela. And then we're looking at Nicaragua, Colombia, and I would say all of it. There's no compromise. There's no, it's about a power grab. Even Brazil could be next.
I suppose the dimensions changed with Trump's social media post last night. They told us it was about drug running, about fentanyl, of which there is not a single pill coming from Venezuela, as the USDEA has confirmed in its annual report. Then it was about drug runners. But now, after last night, he's demanding Venezuela return all the oil and land that it has stolen from the United States, 2,000 miles away. It's difficult to even understand what that even means. But for Latin America, it's a big warning that the Yankees are not just after your resources, they're after your land itself, your patrimony. This is a profound and dangerous shift, is it not?
No, absolutely. I think you see, he's shifting from this excuse of drug trafficking, which you mentioned just before. The 2024 DEA report didn't even mention a single time Venezuela. And now Venezuela has become the major drug exporter. It's absolutely, there's no foundation, there's nothing out there. It was just pure invention. And now it's coming with an excuse of they want the oil and the land back. It's just absurd. I don't even know, there's not a single analyst out there that could actually find, any justification. How can you claim the resources of Venezuela or the oil? It doesn't make any sense. I think this is an empire which is completely, desperate. But of course, we are expecting probably a declaration of war tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time. But I would say that war, I don't see boots on the ground. We need to look at, what is going to be the scale. I think it's going to be probably gradual. It's going to be extremely asymmetric. There's not going to be kinetic confrontation directly with the militia. I think this is going to be over the distance. So very targeted, and I would expect a lot of cyber warfare and strangulation of Venezuela. But I do not expect something massive. Boots on the ground. They don't have enough troops. And I would say what we need to pay attention is maybe a fifth column. The US has been building a fifth column here with the help of the CIA, USAID, NED, all those NGOs that have put massive money behind this fifth column. Well, they're hoping to create disturbance, chaos, and strangulation of the economy. And ultimately, I think they're still hoping to have a remake of what happened in 2002. If you remember, George, in 2002, they managed with a very small fringe of the army to use that fringe to take the power that lasted only 48 hours. Now it's a different army, which is much more solid. But I think there is more to that. If he's so bold, he might have some cards out there. Now, I would say what I fear the most, because the problem for Trump is that he lacks legitimacy and public support. So what could change would be a false flag operation. So do pay attention for false flag operation. There's a high probability, and this wouldn't be the first time. And that could change the perception, the public perception, because I really doubt that Trump is going to go all the way. And keep in mind, this is also diversion. If Trump puts too much resources here, that would be dramatic for his plan to shift its attention and its focus towards China. So big question mark. It's very hard to see how it is going to be. But from my personal impression, I feel that this is going to be limited at the beginning, and probably he wants to negotiate with Maduro. But coming from Trump, you know how Trump is. Negotiation, there's no win-win. He's going for the full power grab, for the full capitulation, for the full regime change, and this won't happen. Venezuelans say it clearly in Spanish. No pasarán, and I believe they will stick together, and there's going to be even I don't see this fifth column to succeed because people are getting to be united behind the Venezuelan flag.
I used to have great fun in the early part of this century with Donald Rumsfeld's phrase, it's not our fault that God put America's oil under other people's countries. But Trump has now gone much further than that. At least Rumsfeld acknowledged that the oil was under other people's countries. But Trump, in his declaration last night, has actually claimed that the oil belongs to the United States and the land belongs to the United States. But how is this going down in the region, Angelo? What are the neighbors saying? And then I'll ask you, what are the big powers saying? But for example, I saw the new president of Chile give his support, the son of an SS officer, by the way, who escaped to Chile. He gave his support to an American invasion of Venezuela. What about the other neighbors?
Well, I would say I'm looking closely at the reactions coming from Colombia and Brazil. Those countries that are not completely sovereign states, there is a huge influence. The CIA is there, is very present, and you have also all those NGOs, USAID, that is influencing. So they're in a gray area. They cannot do everything they want. I need to remind people, but Gustavo Petro and also Lula, when Maduro was elected, they went along with the US and didn't recognize Maduro. And also, they've been not very clear about their support with Maduro. But now there is a public pressure that makes them shift towards a support of Maduro. So you see, those countries in all Latin America, they've been their democracy have been hijacked because you have all those regime change NGOs that hijack the democracy. You see, democracy, when you look at the sovereignty, there is a different, I would say, metrics. One is the physical, and everybody understands that. But then you have information space. You have all the social media. You have NGOs. You have all those leaders that are pre-selected by the West, by the US, and funded by the US. Name one person like Corina Machado. Corina Machado comes from a very wealthy family that used to be in the steel industry, but she was pre-selected by the US, and her media, her organization called Sumate was funded by the NED, which is a spin-off of the CIA. So basically, she's a US agent. So they do the same. In Lula's government, you have members that come from the Soros organization. So you see, the problem is that you have the penetration of the US within those governments, and they're not completely sovereign. So there are different dimensions. And some countries like Trinidad, Tobago doesn't have any choice. USAID has put so much money there, and it's either they go along the US agenda and accept to have US Army troops to be on their soil, or they are next.
Yeah. Now, in the time we have left, before I wish you Godspeed in getting home, the Venezuelans are not without international allies, although they are far away. Even Cuba is far away and can be interdicted easily. China has massive investments in people's Venezuela and has a massive trade relationship. Russia also has a strategic relationship with the Maduro government, with the Chavista revolution. And Iran has deep economic ties and other ties with Venezuela. What's the impact on these countries if this relationship that they all valued is now under bombardment or even invasion by the United States of America?
Well, Venezuela is a key piece when it comes to the axis of resistance, but also in the multipolarity. So I would say this could very much damage, this multipolar project. Also, when you look at the direct enemies of the US, you have Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. those three countries combined, actually, they are the very big suppliers of energy to China, because ultimately everything is linked to the last piece. It is China. So indirectly here, they are hitting China by hitting Venezuela. So the possibilities, a lot of people are asking, what are those countries doing? Iran, Russia, China, what are they doing for Venezuela? Well, the problem is that they're doing as much as they can. I think they are sharing intelligence, they're giving weapons, they're doing as much as they can, but they have a problem because in the world right now, there's only one country that has power projection. It is the United States. Even though China and Russia have a very strong armies, but they do not have that power projections because they have almost zero US army bases outside their country because they are built to defend themselves. US army, on the contrary, is an aggressive army which was built to project their power. So that's the real empire. That was the purpose. So you see, they are limited. And also, there's another thing is that, remember, there was a paper. It was on the Rand Corporation that said, it was in 2019, that said, extending Russia. And they did. By extending Russia, they wanted Russia to go into a conflict against Ukraine, but also Syria. Everything was written. Everything is in those papers. The problem is that Russia cannot afford to extend itself because it has limited capacities. It can defeat NATO there, but it cannot do much more, and it will do whatever it can, but it is limited.